Jesus Belza here with MK Partners, and thank you for joining. Today is Thursday, April 21st, and our Closer Look webinar for this month consists of using Mambo Merge to generate all sorts of labels. Matt Kaufman, our lead developer, is going to be providing us with a closer look on how to use Mambo Merge to generate and customize labels right out of Salesforce. So, thank you again for joining, and thank you, Matt, for doing this. Take it away.
Thanks, Jesus. I'll begin by sharing my screen, and I'll do my entire screen. All right. So today we're going to go over a recipe that we actually have published on GitHub. It's a public recipe. We have different recipes that are available for you to kind of enhance standard functionality in Mambo Merge with new features that you can kind of take advantage of the Salesforce platform for. This one, like Jesus mentioned, is to create mailing labels, or essentially some type of pieces of paper that rather than having one set of data on the paper, like an invoice, we want multiple pieces, multiple sets of data, essentially like a bulk, but within a grid. The Avery labels is typically the kind of things that we refer to, but those labels, those sheets that you can buy to print off of, they come in all sorts of different sizes actually. And labels is one. I've seen name tags. I've seen little table stand things for like weddings and events and things like that. So this can be really useful if you would need to generate those types of documents. And so we have this recipe for you already on the App Exchange. Today we're going to walk through the recipe. This is somewhat of a developer advanced type of webinar. So I'm not going to go into too much detail as to how some of the behind the scenes stuff work, like Apex or Visualforce or Lightning components. If you have specific questions, I'd recommend contacting us afterwards if you need to learn more about how that works. But if you have some comfort, as you can see here, we talk about how there's a Visualforce page and Aura app. If you have comfort with those frameworks, with that technology, then you should be able to follow along pretty easily. So inside the recipe, you can get to, again, on GitHub and our Mambo Merge organization. It's called Contact List View Mailing Labels Recipe. This is kind of just a base template that you can then use for all sorts of other purposes. And in here we have a Contact List View Mailing Labels page. And most of our recipes involve, when we're doing bulk or batch operations, involve a Visualforce page, because Salesforce requires us, when we create a button on a list view, to call a Visualforce page. So we're calling this Visualforce page, and then this Visualforce page has some to-dos in it. And this is kind of the framework that we follow when we're creating these recipes. We clearly identify what you need to do, and then clearly identify things that we don't want you to touch. And so you can see here, we have this to-do saying, okay, please list your template ID. To-do, enter the number of labels per page. And then if you want to turn on debug mode, which typically you do while you're testing, you leave that as true. Otherwise, you can set it to false. And then don't touch this other stuff. It's basically, this is the actual code that we're using to then put Mambo Merge on the page and specify, hey, please only do, in this case, 10 at a time. And today, just to kind of throw a wrench in it, I'm not going to do 10 at a time. So we're going to make a change to this in my Salesforce org. We're going to do something different. So I'm going to jump to Word. And you can see here I have a template for name tags that we would like hand out at an event or something like that. And if you remember, we're going to do this from contacts. And so I'm going to come here and I'm going to start putting in my merge fields. But when you're doing labels or name cards or something like that, the merge fields are a little different. We don't actually just do first name like that, or actually in this case, I guess it would be ID, let's just say. We don't do it that way. The reason being is that's the notation we use when we're doing one record per document. In this case, the entire document is going to be looped through multiple times. And within the document, we'll have multiple records as well. So we're gonna use a different notation, and I actually have a sample already built, although we'll come back and probably change this one. So if we come here and we look at this test label template, so first, some things that we're going to need to do is use this clone for each pages. So this is a tag that we're going to use to basically tell Mambo Merge, take this page and make multiples of it. And the multiples, in this case, is the word pages. That's just a word that we're using. If we go back to the recipe, we can see that pages is in here right there. So we can see pages, pages. If you were to write this from scratch, you could do whatever you want on there. Pages works pretty well for us, but you could do whatever you want. And so I'm going to come here and I'm just going to take this clone for each pages. And I don't know if I can copy it, but that's okay. I can type it in. And I'm going to just type it in anywhere on the page. And this is what's kind of interesting. Is you literally can put it anywhere on this page. It doesn't matter where. It'll disappear once it's generated. So we don't care where it goes. And then I'm going to go ahead and let's hit enter and do first name. Again, that's not the right notation, though. Okay, so then if you look here, you'll see the right notation would be record 1 dot first name, record 2 dot first name. And let's go back to the recipe and take a look at that as well. Okay, so if we look at this recipe down here, let's see if I can find it right here. And again, this is JavaScript being done in Visualforce. I don't expect everyone on the call to fully understand it. But what we're basically doing is, in this code, we're creating these structures. When we query Salesforce, we're just getting a list. It says record 1, John Doe, record 2, Jane Doe, record 3, Sam Stone, and so on and so forth. And we're taking that list and we're saying, hold on, I'm going to start putting things into these other structures. One of those structures is called a page or pages. And inside that pages structure, I'm going to create these things called records. And I'm going to just start putting the people into those records. And so that's what we're doing in this code here. That's why we ask you not to change this code, because if you do change it, then you're going to have to change how you do things on this page here. And so I'm going to come here, I'm going to say record1.id, and I'm going to say record1.firstname, and we're going to keep doing that on all these other ones. And what I usually will do, just to get it go a little faster, is paste, 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 and then go back and change it all. That one should be lowercase. Typically, setting up the template is actually one of the longest tasks that we have to do when we're setting up our clients, because we've got to get it just right. Ooh, that's going to be 4. That's going to be 3, 5, 6. So this particular template only has 6, not 10, and that's something that we're going to change. I think if you're printing out labels, they often are 10. I think maybe sometimes they're 12, sometimes they're 8. Kind of depends on how big they are. So it's important to know how to make these changes. Again, this clone for each doesn't matter. It's going to go away, and everything else will adjust. So even though this looks a little off in terms of the height, it should be fine once the clone for each was taken away. And if I was really concerned about it, I could do something like that and have it be on one line, but I'm not too concerned. I do want to right-click and say ignore all on this clone for each. I'm not too concerned about the hello, my name is, but in general, if a merge field ever has a little red squiggly or a blue squiggly, it's a best practice to get rid of that squiggly, because that will reduce the chance that Mambo Merge has a hard time parsing it. So we have record 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm just going to compare it back with my file just to make sure it really does look good. Yes, it does. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload over this one. I'm going to upload a new version. And here it is, test cards done right now. Okay, and that looks good. And we're going to say updated to 6 card, 6 name tag, let's say. Now the file name here is test label template. And we're going to want to use this on the contacts list view. So I'm going to go back to the contacts tab. And you can see here we have this button here already called labels. And let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to go to Salesforce setup. And I'm going to go to the object manager. And go to the contacts object. And so this is a button that we've created. Now there's a couple different types of buttons you can create. You can see there's actions, there's buttons. This is a button. And when I created the button, there's a couple things that I had to fill in a certain way. First, I have to make sure it's a list view button because I want to use this on the list view. Second, I said I do want to use checkboxes because I want to be able to say select number 1 and number 5, but not necessarily 2, 3, 4. I like to display it in an existing window. That's somewhat of a personal preference. Totally up to you. And then we'll choose the Visualforce page, and we'll choose the recipes page. And I've already installed this recipe. If we go back to the recipe, you'll see here this deploy button allows you to deploy it. And then you can see it tells you all the instructions for how to do things. Let me just double check that template looks right. Okay, so we'll kind of walk you through there. Okay, and then we're going to come back to Salesforce. Sorry for the jumping. So yeah, so I chose this. I called it labels. I think I called it labels, and then I saved it. And we'll see that I did indeed save it before, and it's down here. It should match that specification that I just mentioned. So I did list button. I checked the checkboxes, display an existing window because that's my preference, and then Visualforce page. Like I mentioned, we have to use Visualforce because Salesforce doesn't let us call Mambo Merge directly. It doesn't let us call a Lightning Web Component or an Aura component. So we choose Visualforce, and then this is the one that we're using for this recipe. It's called Contact List View Mailing Labels. In general, for all of our recipes, to make sure there's no conflicts, we make sure that we don't use the same names more than once. So if, let's just say, we were to come up with another recipe tomorrow called, specifically for these name cards or name tags, we would call that page something different, even though they're really doing the same thing. And that way, whoever's using what, they won't have a conflict and accidentally overwrite something. So we create the button, and then we have to add it to the page. Now, adding it to that list view page is a little weird, especially in Lightning. What we do is we come down here to search layouts for Salesforce Classics, excuse me, and we're going to click on this list view to edit it. And here we can see any custom buttons we've created, and we can see those other ones that I have there. I'll move those away and just leave the labels one there, and we'll hit save. And then when I come back to the list view and refresh, that labels is there. Okay, now before I click that button, remember the default, if we come back to the recipe, oop, wrong one, sorry, is 10. We want this one to be 6. So I'm going to have to change this. Now, I'm not going to change the recipe. Instead, I'm going to change it inside the Salesforce org. So let's come back here to Salesforce. And normally, I would do this in VS Code or some other type of code editor in IDE. But today, it's faster. I'm just going to do it from the Salesforce Developer Console. You won't be able to do this in production. In production, you can't make this type of edit directly. You have to do this in Salesforce. I'm sorry, in the sandbox. But since I'm in a developer org, I'm able to make this change. Normally, you do it in a sandbox and then deploy it. And so I'm going to pull this up, open it. And this is how you can make changes to the to-dos. So I'm going to make a change here. I'm going to set it to 6. I can also change the template ID. I could also turn off the debug mode. I'll hit save. And at this point, I can actually close it. I don't think I need it for anything else. But I'll just move away to be safe. Okay, what else? We need to configure that template. So if we come back to the recipe again, we'll notice that the template ID's name was contact list mailing labels. That means nothing to Mambo Merge. You have to tell it what it means. So we're going to go ahead and get to Mambo Merge. So you can put Mambo Merge anywhere you want. You can put it on any page, basically, in Salesforce, and then take it away later. This is just a way to configure it. So let's see if I can find it somewhere in Salesforce. All right, here it is. Perfect. So it's on the contact screen. I'm going to come here and hit setup. And we can see here we have contact list mailing labels. So this is a configuration I already created. You create a configuration by clicking this new configuration button. And when you click it, you'll see this screen. And basically, this lets you paste in the name, and we just copy it from the recipe and paste it in here. There it is. And then we can add a specific file to be used with this configuration. We just want to add one. It's going to only use the first one because it's being called from the Visualforce page. And so how do we get this file? Well, we come back to Salesforce, and we click on the Files tab. And you can see that test label template that I uploaded earlier. When you click on it, it's going to try to show you a preview. I don't care about the preview. What I want to do is hit View File Details and grab this ID here at the top. So in the URL of every Salesforce record, whether it's a file or a data record, you're going to have a unique ID. It's usually 15 to 18 characters. You can see here. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to come back to Salesforce and go to my Mambo Merge setup. I'm going to paste this in here, and you can see there it actually is the same, so I did it right. And we'll hit save to save this configuration. Okay, and now if I come back to my contacts list view, we should be able to push this button. Now, before I push it, I got to check off some records. So I'm going to check off some records, and I'm going to do 6. We could do more. We'll do 6 to start, and then I'll hit labels, and we'll see what happens. Now, at this point, what's happening behind the scenes is we click the button. The button is open at the Visualforce page. The Visualforce page has Mambo Merge on it. Now, we can actually run Mambo Merge on load. I did not set that option for this one, so I'm going to click Merge again. And hopefully it's generating that document. I'm a little impatient, so I'm going to go ahead and hit inspect to see what might be happening over on the right-hand side. And because we have debug mode on, we should be able to see something. Well, it looks like the file got saved, so that's good. I didn't see the little pop-up, but I'm sharing my screen, and so maybe it's stopping pop-ups. But I'm going to go ahead and go to the Files tab. Actually, I'll copy this first just to be safe. And yeah, there it is. Okay, phew. All right, and I don't want to wait for this one to generate the preview either, so I'm just going to download it and give it a second, and there it is. Okay, and so it went ahead and it filled in those 6 people, Andy, Arthur, etc., right here. You can see the IDs as well, and oh, that's a little off, but that's okay. So let's try it again. This time we're going to do it with more than 6 people. I'm going to close this one as well. Oh, there's the preview. And we'll see if that works as well. So I'm going to come back to the Contacts tab. I'm going to choose anything more than 6, and we should get 2 pages now. Let's go ahead and click Labels and Merge. And again, I didn't see the pop-up, but I'm assuming it's there. If we go back to the Files tab, there's the second one. Oh, I hope that's the second one. I did it so quickly. Actually might be the first one. This one was 10:51 a.m., 93 kilobytes. Yeah, I think that's the first one. Or it's not doing the clone for each, which is also possible. That's also 93. All right. Well, we got some time. I can try to figure it out. So often what happens when something doesn't do multiples is that tag, that clone for each tag, has got a blue squiggly in it or something like that. And mine did. I did say ignore on it, but it's possible that it somehow has a problem. Let's go ahead and choose 13 or 14, and I'll hit labels. And then what I'm going to do is hit inspect, and then hit console. Now we're getting really advanced here, so I apologize. But what I'm going to look for is the data that's being sent to Mambo Merge. If I can, no, let's try that one more time. So we can see here 6 records and 6 more records. That's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that could be definitely part of the problem. And that's something that is easily fixed. Let's go ahead and merge. And then inside Mambo Merge here, we can see our pages. And I see the problem already. I don't see the word pages anywhere. So we will have to fix that. That's fixable inside the recipe. It's something that we would fix in the Visualforce page here. And this is something that we'll do. We'll go ahead and update the page and update the recipe as well. We got about 6 minutes left. I might be able to fix this on the fly. Before we do that, do we have any questions? All right, so I will try to fix this on the fly then. Okay, so let's see what we're doing here. We're pasting in the current label. We started with 1. Remember that? It was record 1. So we want to do that instead of 0. That should help. Let's see what else we need to do. We need to have the word pages so that it'll loop through it. And the way we're going to do that is doing this. I think that's going to do it. Again, I'm debugging on the fly, but what we can do. Actually, I'm going to go back and do it one more time just to make sure the page is the latest version. Now, if we wanted to run on load, which we sometimes do, there's another attribute that we can use in our API called merge on load. And we set that to true. And then basically what will happen is as soon as this page loads, it will go ahead and run Mambo Merge. And that way you don't even have to show it on the page. All right, and I just want to come here and see now you can see the data is a little different. We have this thing called pages, and then within each page, we have records 1 through 6. Okay, I'm going to go back to the Files tab. We'll come here to the Files tab and look at this most recent one at 10:56. And I'll hit download so that we can save some time. Ah, we got 2 pages now. Okay, so we'll update that recipe to have that latest. But there's our 12, and we can keep going longer and longer if we want. Some things to also note about this recipe. In order to do the labels and do it properly, we are using an Apex class. Now, an Apex class is only available in the Enterprise edition of Salesforce or higher. It's not available in lower editions. You can do some of our recipes without Apex classes. This one's a little more complicated because we're querying these fields here. And so this type of code is only available in Enterprise Edition and above for recipe purposes. Obviously, Mambo Merge itself has some built-in functionality that's in Apex, but when you're trying to do custom on top, that requires Enterprise or above. If for some reason you didn't want to query context, but you were doing something else, then you would have to modify this. Or if you are querying context, but you want different fields, you would modify this as well. So that's something to be aware of. This is one of the more advanced recipes that we have. Any questions? Okay.
I had a question, Matt.
Yeah.
The format that you currently have set up, is there a different Avery standard that needs to be, I guess, addressed or considered when adding these?
So Avery actually, and Avery's not the only label maker. They're a brand name, but most of the label making companies, they provide their own templates for Microsoft Word. You can make your own if you know how. I'm not going to be an expert at it, but essentially all this is a table, and it's sized perfectly. So you can table. If you're not familiar with tables, the little pointy squares, I don't know what they're called. Those are basically the outline for the tables. I'm sure there's a better way to show this. If I were to do borders and look at it that way, we could probably do a border and figure out how to do it. But I'm not an Avery label expert. But yeah, so it wouldn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing labels, if you're doing name tags, table cards, whatever, it's all the same to Mambo Merge. All you have to do is make sure that if we pull up that initial file again, that you use this notation. So we have clone for each pages somewhere on the label. And then we use that record 1, record 2, etc. And if you were doing 10, we would have kept the variable inside the recipe at 10. If you have 8 on the page, you would set it to 8, and so on and so forth. And it's just the one page. We don't need it to create multiple pages. Mambo Merge will do the multiple pages.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. And again, this is one of our more advanced recipes. I'd say if you're comfortable making changes to Salesforce code, whether it's Visualforce, Apex, JavaScript, then you should be able to do this very easily. If not, it's not hard to find someone who can do it, and we do provide that service as well.